We'll call this meeting to order, and we do have people here for our public forum. As everyone knows, you've signed in, I believe, and when you come to the podium, if you'll just announce who you are, and we have the 3 minute clock going, which is what we're supposed to stay under, but we'll see if we need to go a little bit farther on that, we will do that. So we'll go in the order that people came, and I believe you all were here first.
John Rose. I got a couple of things. First thing that's on my concern is erroneous charges on my bill. I called the utility company. They told me it was charges for minimum usage. However, I'm being billed for the usage that I'm using. So why am I being double billed? That's my question to this board.
I'm going to defer that to Mr. Fay because that is.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. We answered that question in writing to you, I believe.
Would you kindly please state what that was?
No, sir. I won't.
Okay.
You have a copy of that. You can review that yourself.
I've got that.
I don't want to take up any of your time.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
The second question I have, and everybody knows that I've been here December 14th, but Vicki reported us as not being present, which is incorrect. I don't know why you would lie. However, this utility company has stated that and put in writing that they will remove my tree and replace that tree. To date, they haven't done so. When is that going to take place?
Again, that's not a decision the board makes. Mr.
No.
Fay, you want to respond?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm addressing this board. Greg Fay isn't the board. Greg Fay doesn't have a vote in this.
And you don't have a say in that either, Mr. Rose. And I can just tell you right now,
Mr. Fay,
that you don't have an
your
opportunity
hostility is
to ask questions to the board
unwarranted.
or to me. You
So
have an
I'm
opportunity
asking
to
this
speak.
board, when is my tree going to be finished being removed? And when am I going to get a tree in its spot?
It's my understanding that that is something that Mr. Fay, you have.
And we don't need to respond at all to that, Madam Chair.
Mr. Fay is not this board. He doesn't have a say-so. He doesn't have a vote.
This board only decides policy. It does not.
This board can hire and fire the general manager.
We have no reason.
This general manager carrying out and enforcing all contracts of the system for the benefit of the system and its customers. This is a contractual agreement that they put in writing. He is responsible and he is negligent for not foreseeing that contract is fulfilled. Dereliction of duty. Point blank.
The purpose of public forum is to give you a chance to say what you want
And
to
I'm
say.
asking the board, when am I going to get this contract fulfilled?
And I believe we have addressed that through Mr. Fay before.
You have not. This board has not addressed it.
You are out of time. If you want to have another minute, we'll give you another minute, but that is about all we can do.
Once again, I'll ask this board, not Greg Fay, when am I going to get this contract fulfilled? That's a responsibility of this board. It's a board meeting. Mr. Fay is not a board member, nor does he have a vote. This board's responsible to make a decision of when that's going to be fulfilled. And they have an obligation to go to Mr. Fay and tell him when it's going to be fulfilled. And he's going to have to do that. That is what this board is here for. It's the law. It's in writing.
Okay, you have had your 3 minutes. We hear you. And I think your issues have been addressed in writing. Okay, now then, I believe Mr. Hollingsworth, would you like to speak to the board? And again, we have the 3 minute thing, but we can extend that as needed.
Hello, and Joe Hollingsworth's my name. This is J.D. King, our Director of Construction, and Don Nichols, who's a Director of Construction locally. So I want to first thank you guys for the public service that you do. It is hard to come up here and day after day after day and not get any praise for what you do, but you're running a good utility And sure, there's shortcomings. It's a business, but I think it's being managed fairly well, and feel like that we have contributed some to to a better outcome with developers. Besides thanking you, which is certainly due, I'd like to talk a little bit about our subdivision. We have been trying to build workforce housing, and I have never run a project so bad as this subdivision. We hit rock, had to mine rock, actually ground up the rock and put it underneath the roads. That took a year. We went through COVID, and then we went through this problem that we've had with transformers. And it's not just transformers, it's outage of everything. And they gave us a list, and they've done a real good job, and we've reached contract on that. And we were able to help secure for the board or for CUB some of these items in order to expedite it. We feel like it's terribly overdue. The housing situation here is terrible. We have got to do some more workforce housing quickly. And if the board and management kind of focus on trying to get this contract implemented, and I don't even know the exact dates on this, but I believe we'll have some really good workforce housing, and it will attract other developers. I'd like to talk a little bit about Aspire. Greg has done a great job, and really all the utility has done a great job, and you all have been supportive of things that we've tried to do over there, and we've really worked to improve things. When we got there, we found water lines outside of easements. And it was embarrassing to all of us not to know where the water line was or outside the easement. But we've corrected those things in a lot of cases, and they've worked hand in hand with them. And we're going to be working to correct all the easements shortly in probably the next 30 days. But Aspire brings a brand new focus to this community. And I wanted to speak to you guys about the ability to change the lifestyle of a community and attract developers. I've been blessed with a bunch of developer friends, and they're interested in coming here. They're interested in a lot of different things here, and it will greatly move forward the community.
Madam Chair, I recommend that we extend the time for Mr. Hollingworth.
I agree. We've all been interested in seeing how
Thank-
that's progressing.
Thank you. Greg may not like this, but it's important for the board to play an instrumental role in attracting these developers. It doesn't matter what I do if we run them off. So what I'm trying to establish here is just a good line of communication for outside developers coming in. Sometimes we focus just on ratepayers, and we don't extend trunk lines. Developers can't afford a trunk line at their cost for their new development, as well as a trunk line through their development. So some good planning and some forethought at this board level, administered by guys that know what they're doing, would have such an impact on the developers. We're having so much outside inquiry from developers because of Aspire that I think it's just an opportunity for this utility in this community to leap forward, just like you've seen Lenore City do, just like Franklin did. This community can do that, and Aspire is bringing a lot of focus on that, national focus even. So just wanted to pat you on the back for your service, pat you on the back for administering a really good utility, but wanted to make sure that we look at planning and doing a really good job of trying to put out infrastructure necessary where developers can extend and expand. It's just cost prohibitive now in the real world for a developer to buy 100 acres and build a subdivision and then have to put all that have to put all that investment in and then turn around and have to spend $2 million getting lines to it. Whereas if you have part of the line paid for, maybe that deal works. But I just would encourage the board's active participation in helping developers overcome these hurdles.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Joe, are you, are there particular areas where you're feeling like, geography wise, where you see that there's more opportunity, or is it residential? Is it commercial? What are you hearing from the other developers in terms of where the assistance could be needed, and do you have specific kind of areas where locations could get it?
The ones I've heard from, probably out of the top 10, have been mostly apartment developers. 70% have been apartment developers. And once again, it's a trunk line situation. And they cannot support this. I mean, so many of the apartments are subsidized. So we're not really interested in getting all the subsidies here, just subsidies. And so if you're going to work with developers on apartments, they need a little bit of trunk line support and encouragement. They can go anywhere and develop, right? But they have to choose to come here, and we have to make it easy. So I would encourage the board to actively participate, especially with apartments, but it doesn't have to be just that. It can be just your simple rules on enabling commercial developers too. And you've got several new ones coming to town, several we've brought to town that have developed some really nice structures. All right.
Okay, any other comments?
No, I
Okay,
don't think
anybody
so.
have any questions? Okay,
Just a comment.
okay.
I mean, over several years, I've had people come and ask me about issues that can't get resolved, and the boards. Everyone to date that I have said, if you've got an issue like that, get an appointment, sit down with Greg Fay, and you will get it worked out. If the developers have an issue, I would suggest going to Greg and sit down. And every time I've seen, Greg works to try to figure out a way to make it work.
These are lower hurdles elsewhere. We trade in 17 different utilities. The cost of doing business or developing is cheaper in other areas. And the hurdles to try to meet the requirements are pretty high here. All right. I'm not saying it can't be done, but they're pretty high here. So you have high standards. But cost sharing is a big part of this. It can't be just the developer up the street that gets $1 million bullet between his eyes because there wasn't a line ever extended up anywhere near his property. He's supposed to extend the line himself. So I would ask that it would be similar to other utilities in that there's some cost sharing involved. There's lots of ways to go about that. And you all have done some cost sharing on this subdivision too, on the electric. And thank you. It's been great. But, we paid for part of an electric upgrade. So that's an infrastructure question, getting to the property. So I just want to comment that we need to keep those communications open and encourage your general manager to react positively on sharing that cost. Because once you get, it's just like our subdivision, once you get 200 new homes up there, we haven't had any growth, in 25 years? North City's grown. So, and we should be growing right on I-75. This is the river of money running through here. Gosh. So 200 new homes paying rates that maybe wouldn't have happened if we hadn't pushed it forward hard. So I'm just saying there's a lot of help developers need. That's why you see TIFs now, tax increment financing, is because so many developers are asked to do high cost things that really aren't directly their responsibility. And so the utility or the government puts rules back on them and costs back on them, and then they use tax increment financing. So cost sharing goes a long way toward this for attracting developers. I just don't want to attract all these people and not be able to develop here.
Joe, you said you work with other utilities. Is there one in particular that you would consider the benchmark for developers to work with? Because I'm curious about the makeup. Since I'm kind of new on the board, I've learned about other utilities and how they're run. Some are run through the cities and other municipalities, and we're sort of that way, but also sort of separate, not like Norris. And so I'm just curious if there are some other utilities that you have really enjoyed working with from that perspective.
Well, you're structured good. That's a big part of it. The way you're structured with the city of Clinton and management and all, and having directors that are appointed a lot on competence, right? Which is your favorite elected system?
W. Budd.
Who?
W. Budd. Or the West Knox.
West Knox Utility.
Was a great one to work with on the water line upgrades. And then Huntsville, for the most part, is really good. They actually run the water lines on our sites for us. They're charged to us for our industrial developments down there. Moxville, North Carolina, mainly their energy group, Energy United. There's absolutely no cost savings if we're bringing jobs to there, or no cost sharing, no aid to construction that we have to pay. They actually install all of our system upgrades within our park. Their water department did all of the water line expansions inside of our park for no charge whatsoever. They claimed that they would get it back off of the rates that would come. They're in fact upgrading our sewer station right now because we added 400,000 square feet. They're upgrading the system at no charge to us, even though we were the developer. And in a lot of other jurisdictions, there's some that we don't like. Prince George, Virginia, we just recently had some problems with them because they couldn't support our billings. They have now turned back around and they're upgrading their own system at no charge to the developer. So
Those are some good examples, but the one that's closest at hand is West Knox. You know what road is there at I-75 and I-40. Okay, so the governor's announced, TDOT's announced that will be a 8-lane intersection or bridge across, so it'll be huge. And there were some water line upgrades needed, and the state had a program where the local utility participated in that in grants, and then we got rebates off of money they had set aside for line upgrades. So we were able to work with them as a developer, and basically split the cost.
So in that situation, what happened was there was an existing line. The developer needed a bigger line to supply the project. Well, that line had been depreciated over a period of time. And West Knox actually came up with this agreement that in addition to getting state funding and stuff, they would take the depreciation, that line had already been depreciated, apply it to what the line would be. And the developer ended up paying only for the increase from the 8-inch to the 12-inch. The line had been there for 34 years and already had the money set aside to replace it.
Just a follow-up question. I guess because we've done the last several years I've been here, I know we've had a good comparison of local utilities of kind of connect fees and that kind of stuff. But also hear what you're saying, which is particularly for large commercial projects, it's expensive to bring a line on, but you're bringing into one building, right? I mean, you're bringing into one building. We have one tenant, one client, and that one client is usually using a significant amount of electricity, water, or whatever it is. So in some ways, it's a little bit easier than delivering it to, maybe a residential subdivision. But we think from a peer perspective, we're pretty good on the comparable connect fees.
You are,
but I think
are.
it's this.
He's done a real good job.
It's that extension of, and the lines and so forth that you talk about, Joe. And I think that the question is that something that we in the city can kind of look at kind of for more comparison purposes. There are obviously state grants. I mean, there's state funding out there. They've got a tremendous amount of money these days. At least they had some from the COVID infrastructure stuff that was available.
They have tremendous amounts. There's so many
Mr.
grants
King
available.
is referring, and he had several times in what he said, to parks. He's talking about industrial parks. That's
Right,
the area
exactly.
that they're most doing.
Exactly.
We don't. There is no extensions in
Right.
industrial parks as it is right now. What really then you confuse what we're doing with industrial
Right.
than what we're doing with with residential.
Correct, and that's why I wanted
You
to
know.
separate the two, because an industrial client is one client.
We
that
don't, there
deliver.
are no grants
Right,
generally for residential,
right.
you know, and if there were, then we would absolutely participate in that. But compared to where we are regionally, there's no one that can touch us. It used to be Lenore City was held up as the model, and we did an extensive comparison on that. Thousands and thousands of dollars per unit is a difference, where they would charge over $2,000 just for sewer before you did anything. All that had to be paid up front just to connect. So you know we don't have connect fees. So there, when you look at the residential, there's no one can touch us. Knoxville can't touch us, and Lenore City can't touch us, and Oak Ridge can't. Anybody.
The tap fees are very manageable. They've done a great job on that.
Not manageable, Joe. They're not existent.
Well, okay, they're very few. But what happens is we have to have a trunk line. It
Right.
doesn't matter how
Exactly.
much if you can't get to it.
That's-
So that's the $1 million question, and it has to be negotiated. And he's good at this. Has to be negotiated with good board support to encourage developers to want. And once you get 3 or 4 of them working here, the news will spread.
Well, I would assume that if you've got some ideas on where there are funding sources from the state or ways that we could do it, Greg's
Absolutely.
always open to, I would assume, open to hearing all that, so.
We have, as a consultant, feel free to share him with us at no cost. Paul Daggs. Paul is we hired him as soon as he retired from TDOT as chief engineer. He knows all the programs. He's working with the city in several grants. He's a facilitator. And industrial, you have one piece of industrial land, so I don't think unless somebody buys some industrial land, I don't think that's going to be a big. But-
Are you gonna do that, Joe?
No. No. My runway isn't that long.
You've
But
done well so far, we'd like it.
yeah, doing all we can. But as far as small commercial developments and residential, multifamily residential, I think that's what needs to happen right now. If we don't get some rooftops, this is such an opportunity. If we don't get some rooftops, it's a shame.
Okay, anybody else have comments or questions here? Well, we appreciate your comments and the information that we've been wondering about and your professionalism for addressing us. Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. And the next item of business is approval of minutes, and we've had an opportunity to look at those. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
And are there any comments or corrections or anything that needs to be addressed? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. And that is approved unanimously. And that takes us to the vouchers. Do I hear a motion for approval of the vouchers?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
And are there any questions or comments that anyone has for these? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of vouchers say yes. Yes, and that is approved unanimously. And then now we go to the monthly reports. And Mr. Fay, would you bring us up to date on those?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be happy to do that. And if it's all right with you, I'm going to defer to our Director of Accounting and Finance, Dusty. And I think, you want to share some things, and I think you probably want to share some of the things with USI too.
Yeah, that's correct. Thanks, Greg. So first of all, on the electric financials, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. First, temperature. January was very cold. I think we all remember that. We had a lot of snow. Our average temperature in January was 3 degrees lower than what is typically expected for that month. And we also had several days with low temperatures in the single digits. The impact of that is that we see that on our KWH sales for the month because of the colder temperature, as well as our system experienced one of the highest January peaks on record. And then third, the energy efficiency and the savings that we were able to achieve that month. Fortunately for our DVR, our dynamic voltage reduction program, We achieved a record-breaking monthly savings of $118,000 during the peak period. And then the combination of those increased sales and the peak reduction efforts resulted in a net margin of $323,000 for the month. On water and sewer, it continues to generate a positive net margin and it exceeds the forecast by $240,000. And as Greg mentioned, I'm going to give a quick update on USI. On Friday, March 1st, 2024, Greg Fay, Todd Loggins, Greg Jones, and I met with Bob Cross and Austin Robinson from USI Consulting Group for a quarterly investment review of our pension plan. During the meeting, USI recommended 2 fund replacements intended to utilize better performing funds while also lowering the net expense ratios for each. We also reviewed our current strategic asset allocation and no changes were recommended. These fund changes and our current strategic asset allocation provide us with projected long-term returns over the actuarially assumed discount rate. USI continues to be a valuable partner to CUB in managing our pension plan.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we need a motion for approval of the monthly reports.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
And hearing no questions or seeing no questions asked, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
And the monthly reports are approved unanimously. And that brings us to the project status report. Mr. Fay, can you go over those with
Yes,
us?
ma'am. We are tracking 3 projects here, and all of them deal with upgrading our aerial cable. Really, they're all going well, and really there is no problems. But I wanted to make a connection, which I think is appropriate since it'll tie together. Dustin talked about having this record month of where we peak shaved 118,000, and it's a little confusing because you'll have to look at last month, since that was the calendar month, is where that 118 showed up. And now when you look in your packet, you'll see where we peak shaved, and I think it was 76,000, and that'll be reflected next month. So when we're dealing with calendar months and we're dealing with revenue months are a different thing. But one question that I would have, and it just hit me, is where's all this money going? I mean, if we're doing such a great job and we tell you about the millions we're saving in DVR, and how come we don't see a ton load of that going up? Well, that's the connection I'm going to make, and I thought of that when I looked at these 3 projects. All of this money we're putting back into the system where we have this ability to do all the switching, which gives us this high grade of reliability that we have and minimize the outages that we have. All of that, all 3 of these projects are designed to help us switch and with FLISMA so we can get folks back on, where we're not borrowing money to do that. That's why we don't have a lot of debt. And this money, these capital projects, which are significant, are being fed back into the system. And that's what we've done from day one. The good news is eventually there will come a time when our system is now fully upgraded and we're now switching substations. We're able to handle substations if they go out by different circuits on several different substations. To do that, you've got to have the right conductor going through. So these projects, everything we do, we several tests that we have to go through. One of these, we're taking them out of the field and we're bringing them up to the road, which is always what we look at. Used to be point A to point B, the shortest distance. It's not always the cheapest anymore because apparently Thresk needs to go out and redecorate the farmland when you've got a rut in there. So we really want to bring these out to the road and the road right away. And the other thing is, how loaded are they? Because if they're loaded, we can't switch. We can't move power, increase power substantially to offset where there is an outage. So everything, this aerial cable we put cable out there that's really stout. And that gives us our ability to provide the level of service that we do. But I just wanted to make that point. We're all doing good and we do this, and Todd and his team identify over time and we look, and we have a 5-year horizon that we look at all the time. Where is it that we need to upgrade next? Where will we get the most benefit from that? And these projects that we do here are all in the budget, and they're all being funded by what we're able to save through our virtual power plant. So that 4 minute, I hope was not too much, but I wanted to make all of that tie together for you to better understand.
That sounds great. Does anybody have any questions about these projects? Okay, it does not take an approval. It's just an update, so thank you, Mr. Fay. But we do need to approve the work order. Do I hear a motion for approval of the work order 1650?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
And if you would, Mr. Fay?
Yes,
go over
ma'am.
that for us.
I'll say this, and Todd, you just correct me if you ever need to. Always do that, by the way. We're replacing about 8/10 of a mile of this single phase. It's number 4 ACSR primary, and this is again an upgraded cable. We're replacing that with one and all aluminum aerial cable on Stardust Lane in Andersonville. We've got a situation out there where it's very poor performance. If we have to go out to the same section so many times in order to replace a line, it's so old it's snapping, it's breaking. So this is going to give us better reliability, additional capacity, and the balance in the system. We originally budgeted this for $250,000. It really came in what we thought a lot less than that now, and with our 10% contingency, we're at $204,600. So it's considerably below what the budget amount is for. But this is in the budget, as they say, and this is what we're planning to move forward as we finish these other projects up. Todd, did I miss anything
No,
on
sir.
that? So I recommend that the board approve work order 1650.
Okay, anybody have any questions about this?
Just a comment. It's
Okay.
interesting that it's one of the most heavily loaded single phase lines. I wouldn't have expected that.
It is.
Out in Andersonville?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there on Stardust, there's been a lot of development
Right.
down there in the boat dock and just keeps growing right down
Yeah.
there on the dock.
It's just something I've never thought of.
Yeah.
Looks country out there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You had made the comment that it came in under what you expected. Is that have anything to do with the cost of materials coming down from COVID? Are we seeing that yet?
I'll let you answer that, Todd, but I think, we anticipated potential rock and everything else in that.
We do persist, and we kind of, when I created this budget a year ago, and, I was seeing escalation on everything, so I kind of figured some of that in, that continued escalation, and things have slowed. That escalation has slowed on certain things.
But
So-
it really hasn't come down.
Yeah, it's just the rate of growth is slow. So I was just kind of anticipating, knowing this one's a year away, what are we going to be, and
Yeah.
some of that.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
That's what I was going to say, but it would have been more of a guess than what Todd said.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of approval of this work order, say yes.
Yes.
And that is approved unanimously. And that brings us to other business. So, Mr. Fay, would you like to share anything on those lines?
Yes, well, yes, I want to, we're excited because we have now rescheduled this meeting with our Chief of Federal Affairs out of Washington. I understand that Jessica Hogle, who is the Vice President with TVA, and I think she's bringing 10 other individuals on a plane to Knoxville to come out to us. We're going to have lunch for them here and go through all that what we do here. The idea is how can we replicate what we're doing here across the valley, because they see we potentially see 2,000 megawatts, which is essentially 2 nuclear plants, just on their ability to regulate this voltage, so that it would be transparent to. It is the lowest hanging fruit that we can possibly see, and we have. TVA is so big that they have different divisions that apparently have to come out and taste this juice that we're serving for everybody to get onto the same page. But we see a lot of movement on that. I think we were just asked TMEPA we're going to be doing a presentation for them. TVA has already brought groups out, but the bottom line is we need to formulate an action plan on how to move forward. in all of this. And we think we can help them. We have ideas on all that'll be done, but they'll be out here next Tuesday, the whole group of them, and we'll spend the afternoon with them. And I understand they want to take us to dinner too, so we won't have a lot for lunch, is what I'm thinking. So that's next Tuesday, and we're excited about that. We look forward to that. We understand that potentially there is rumors that we may have been very successful in a safety award with APPA, American Public Power. But I'll share that once we get confirmation, and I think that would be something that we're also looking forward to. But that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. McNally, you have anything you want to share or ask?
I do not.
Mr. Clapp?
Nope.
Mr. Combs?
Can we ask something about Mr. Rose?
Yes, sir. Probably in just a little bit, if that's okay.
What's his issue about the tree? I thought we'd solved that off.
We
a
did.
long time ago.
We did. He's been very persistent, asking the same questions, and TVA has answered them. I got something from them today saying that they're trying to close the loop on that, and they're saying that you just got to reference anything back to code because there is no issue that where they see that we're out of line at all.
Well, hadn't we given him an option of which tree to put out and where to put
We
it?
have.
Put it in the ground?
We have.
I don't think we can talk much about the tree
Right.
issue because of
Yeah.
his
I
choice
think
to
It's a
seek
legal
counsel.
issue.
litigation,
Yeah.
it probably does not. Okay, Mr. McBride?
I'm good.
Okay, and I am too, so thank you all for a good meeting and sorry to say class